After about 60 hours, I 100%ed the Oblivion Remastered. Like the Ebony Warrior from Skyrim, I went above and beyond to complete every achievement and every side quest possible. But does this redeem Bethesda's reputation after so many disappointments and give many, including myself, hope for the Elder Scrolls 6? Let's find out. This is a remaster, so expect the entire narrative to remain the same as the original game. You're the protagonist, a hero meant for great things as predetermined by fate itself. You choose your race and your sex and you'll save the world. The Emperor is fleeing for his life and you cross paths. Unfortunately, the Emperor is killed by a cult called the Mythic Dawn, seeking to bring their god to this world. You must stop this from happening and shut the gates of Oblivion. The story itself isn't that fascinating, it's the lore surrounding the adventure and your actions that create interest. You don't need to be well versed in the lore of the Elder Scrolls games. In fact, Oblivion was my first game ever in the Elder Scrolls franchise, and you can enjoy it just going into this blind. In fact, I would say Oblivion is the best starting point. Learning about the Daedric Lords, the various guilds, and how the world operates is what makes this adventure exciting. There's a lot of reading material scattered throughout the world, and you're going to need to read all of it. This isn't like Dragon Age where they give you the lore in massive dumps and in chronological order. Here you have to really seek it out. Your character simply acts as an extension of what's happening in the world. Even after the final cutscene plays, the game throws another adventure for you to engage with, and this one is far more interesting. The Shiver in the Isles was an expansion for the original game, and it's part of this entire package. While it is accessible during the core story, it's better done after completing the core story itself. Here, players will attempt to assist the Daedric Lord of Madness, Sheogorath, in stopping the destruction of his realm. Unlike the core story, this one offers a lot more interesting twist as you're taking orders from the literal embodiment of madness. Like with many Bethesda titles, players will likely complete the core narratives last as they venture throughout the world, finding guilds to join, dungeons to explore, and side quests to take part in. These stories are usually isolated, finding the traitor in the Dark Brotherhood, for example, or stopping necromancers for the Mages Guild. This adds to the world building as not everyone is aware of the apocalyptic event that is currently happening. Expect a lot of lore dumps, but most of it is optional, so if the player just wishes to keep things moving, they can do it without much issue, as navigation points are always present for the mainline quest, with only a select few quests requiring investigation. And by investigation, I mean talking to a guard and asking for directions. Overall, it is the world of the Elder Scrolls that really enthralls the player, not the narrative itself, and I'm sure a lot of us have seen the memes involving Fallout and Skyrim all over the internet. It's still present here. You just go out into the world and explore and see what happens. As for the voice acting itself, it still has that Oblivion jank to it. They kept everything completely authentic to the original title, so the unusual mannerisms, the way characters just stop and start talking about random stuff or know about things that happen throughout the world despite not being anywhere near it, it just adds to the whole jank of this game, and it's truly enthralling. I love that they decided to not revamp this system and just keep the original system. This may feel dated for a lot of players, especially people who didn't experience the original Oblivion, but this was groundbreaking during its time, and I'm just glad that they gave it the attention to detail to decide, hey, we're going to create something new but the same at the same time. It's almost like you're playing Oblivion for the first time a second time, and that's something that's next to impossible to achieve, but somehow the developers succeeded in that right here. This is the most significant change from the original game. The biggest addition is the inclusion of sprint. In the original, the player had walking and running, but now sprinting has been added for a jolt of speed that far exceeds Skyrim's sprinting system. In fact, I played Skyrim before Oblivion Remastered came out just out of coincidence, so I have a direct comparison fresh in my mind of how those systems work as comparison to this. Even the standard walking speed is faster than the full sprint in Skyrim, but once you upgrade it to the full extent of its ability, you feel like an Olympian runner. The game isn't balanced for this, but it's so insanely fun to sprint across Citadel, I didn't really give a damn. The combat system has been greatly improved. The original Oblivion was groundbreaking for its time, but dated by modern standards. Most of the time you would just slash away with little response, and magic was just terrible to use. The developers took great care to add more weight and a more grounded feel to combat. Nothing feels floaty like the original game, and striking an enemy with steel or magic feels responsive. Magic has been incredibly improved thanks to these new improvements, making it a lot easier to target enemies, especially thanks to the quick slots combat system which allows you to swap between spells very easily. As someone who played the original Oblivion, I 100% had so many issues with that original combat system. Even the Xbox 360 version, which I also 100%, it's even better than the Skyrim's combat system by a wide margin. Shockingly, the third-person combat system has also been greatly improved. Usually, I would only use third-person for searching for items or novelty purposes if I got too bored with first-person, but here it's an actual viable option. In fact, I played the most of the game in third-person because it was just more entertaining that way, especially seeing that I was able to see my armor and weapons, which also look spectacular in this game. The other major improvement is the visuals. The developers took every asset in the original game and enhanced it with better textures and improved performance. This reminds me a lot of what Motive did with Dead Space, but where that game was an entire reimagining, this is more in line with Star Fox 64 3DS or The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3DS. As for the map itself, this is a fickle topic. The original game featured a more colorful palette compared to this version. The colors have been muted with a more realistic look that many players are not a fan of. I get what they were doing here. I don't want to really spoil this game for people who are playing it for the first time, but eventually you'll come to an area called Paradise where it matches the colors of the original game. I guess the developers wanted the more muted colors for the original world to better contrast this other world, but that's just my own guess, and it definitely seems that way because when you play into Paradise, it looks like what the overworld should have looked like. I definitely prefer the original coloration as it's made with more distinct elements from Skyrim, but it's not that big of a deal in my opinion. This isn't to say that everything has been improved on. The developers kept the soul of Oblivion, and that won't appeal to everyone. Leveling involves players constantly using skills connected to certain trees to improve them. For example, using heavy armor improves that skill, and there are 4 tiers to each category. Once you increase your skills high enough, you gain a level which you can put into distinct skills such as endurance, health, luck, and other features, with each new tier of those existing skills to unlock convenient options such as higher damage with certain weapons or less detection when sneaking. On the surface, this seems like an ideal system to complement the exploration-heavy gameplay. The more you use a skill or equipment, the better you get at it. The issue is that it doesn't welcome experimentation, as having to level skills for equipment or spells you will never use will require a lot more grinding, and since spells are locked based on skill level, most players will likely ignore these skills that are annoying to grind out. The game does offer bypasses in the way of scrolls, which provide single-use spell casting, but eventually I think players will just stick to regular conventional weapons. This system can discourage starting a new game though. Since this version doesn't include New Game Plus, no Elder Scrolls game has, despite being a heavily requested feature, having to grind out your skills again can be an extremely negative experience, especially skills that require you to deal or take damage like armor and destruction magic. This opens another major issue with Oblivion Remastered, the stability. Look, Bethesda has a notorious reputation for buggy games, and it's become a meme that the company embraces. However, that only goes so far until people have had enough, like with Fallout 76 or Starfield. The Oblivion Remaster still suffers from bugs and glitches that the original game and even the Game of the Year editions had suffered from. This includes the Fighter Guild Swampy Cave issue, Moloch Bard's Quest, and so many more. I get this game is running on the original version of Oblivion and a graphical update from the latest version of Unreal Engine, but this game has so many problems that were fixed by modders over a decade ago. This is simply not acceptable anymore. If you encounter a glitch that softlock your game or prevents you from gaining an achievement, you're out of luck unless you have a backup save or one of the 5 autosaves happen to be in a good position. And yeah, the game also crashes a lot, has frame rate drops at certain times, especially when you reach the end game or you get past level 25. Audio problems with major quests are present, such as the audio cutting out or just having this very large amount of backspeak. Textures won't load correctly, especially if you have the chameleon power active, where your avatar will look like half invisible but the other half features will still be present. It's very confusing. But even with all those issues, the game is just so much fun. It is an achievement, and it's something that Bethesda is known for. Despite having all these problems with a game that's nearly 2 decades old, the game is still fun and still carries a high level of quality, especially compared to modern games, and that's really saying something. Oblivion is such an addictive game. It's easy to get lost in the world, finding random dungeons, starting a new quest by talking to NPCs at local inns, and getting lost in the many distractions this world has to offer, something that is a staple within Bethesda titles. Some side quests will have you helping an orc become an official knight, going into a painted world, or finding a settlement reliving a battle for all eternity. And since all the NPCs have a set schedule, you'll have to be aware of what time of day as certain events are available during when you decide to take things on. If you want to steal something, go at night, or maybe the NPC only performs actions at exact times of day, so you have to be aware of that. Some NPCs will only talk to you if you have a strong relationship with them, but this can usually be circumvented by bribing them. There is a little mini-game system where you make 4 choices and increase your rank with them, but once you reach level 20 and money becomes so easy to obtain because of the high level loot you can get from random NPCs, you might as well just bribe the guards or bribe the NPCs to gain a high amount of affinity with them. But it just adds to the world building. Not every character is just going to be, hey, you're the main character, I'm going to tell you what you want to know. It does take a bit of extra steps, but I like this feature a lot. There's just so much to explore, and items you can obtain match your current level, so it means challenges are everywhere. This does mean that shops become really irrelevant quickly unless you need ingredients, but equipment in the overworld is always better than what you can purchase. I found shops to be relatively useless unless I needed a repair hammer or certain ingredients for a certain quest. Overall, the impressive amount of improvements they put into this game are staggering, and despite this game having a near 20-year-old story and mechanics and narrative, it still holds up to games that came out this year, such as Avowed, which I doubt anyone remembered even came out this year. Oblivion Remastered is a terrific update to this 2006 classic. The visuals and combat improvements have greatly improved from the game's dated systems while altering the existing content that made this title such a beloved game for millions and has given me newfounded hope for the Elder Scrolls 6. The game's stability is still a problem, and hopefully the developers will work on improving those systems and glitches, especially in open world games like this where constant crashing can just completely destroy the interest for newcomers. And it's also very problematic that major quests are suffering from soft locking issues, especially the Fighters Guild. So I really hope that they resolve this and don't overly rely on modders to resolve all these problems. But if you can accept the Bethesda jank, Oblivion is a game that everyone should try at least once, especially action fantasy RPG fans. This game is a masterpiece for a reason and a legendary title that has influenced a lot of games in the last 2 decades. So I highly recommend that you give this a shot. You won't have to deal with the dated gameplay anymore. This is something that should be a new standard for remastered games, and hopefully we'll get a Fallout 3 or New Vegas remastered next.